Dear students, a very good morning to all of you. Hope you have understood the previous classes. So before entering into this class, I humbly request you to go through the previous video classes. Now we move on to the 20th paragraph. So we are discussing with the lesson Louis Pasteur, the conqueror of disease. Now we move on to paragraph number 20 from page number 57. Although Dr. Jenner had already discovered how to vaccinate against smallpox, he did not really understand about bacteria. So there was another scientist called Dr. Jenner. He is the person who found out some vaccine for smallpox. You know that smallpox is equal to chickenpox, same. So he had found some vaccination against this chickenpox, but he never knew about anything about bacteria. Pasteur, after giving his life to this study, was able to prove the value of inoculation and to find out ways of verifying it for different diseases. So the findings of Pasteur were different. He made studies on bacteria and its impact on a human body and how it causes sickness and all those things. He was very much specialized in bacteriology. We have already learned that, and he knew with inoculation. You know what is inoculation? Infecting a person with a certain kind of weak germs of the same disease is called inoculation. Okay. Whereas vaccination is different, that is you are injecting some medicine, some vaccines, whereas the other one is infecting a person with the same kind of weak germs. Okay, now we move on to 21st. During the First World War, the troops going abroad were inoculated against such diseases as typhoid and enteric fever. And the very low death rate from these illnesses among the troops, even in unhealthy places, was a great tribute to Pasteur's work. So, Pasteur lived at the time of First World War. So, people were inoculated with the weak germs of all these kind of typhoid and enteric fever and all. So, when they went for a war, when soldiers go for war, they will have to live in different places with a different atmosphere. Unhealthy conditions. So since they were inoculated with this typhoid and enteric fever, the death rate of the troops diminished. So that was a great achievement of Louis Pasteur. Now let us move to paragraph number 22. Pasteur's memory is still honored in the Institute Pasteur in Paris, where bacteriology is studied by men of all nations. So there is a particular institute after the name of Louis Pasteur in Paris, where bacteriology, that particular science, is being taught. And men of all nations, people from different countries, come and join in that particular course. At the opening of the institute in 1888, so in 1888, this institute was opened. So that could be a one-mark question. Pasteur said, at that time Pasteur was alive, and he said, two opposing laws seem to me now in contrast. So there are two laws prevailing in the society. Which are they? The one, a law of blood and death. So one law is of blood and death, opening out each day new methods of destruction, forces nations to be always ready for the battle. So there is one law of destruction which causes battle and fight between each other. The other, the law of peace. So the second law is the law of peace. Work and health. So the second law is of work and health, whose only aim is to deliver man from the disasters which surrounded him. So the second law is more constructive. So that saves men from all disasters. That law is the law of peace. The one seeks violent conquest, the other the relief of mankind. So the one law is all about violent conquest, bloodshed and all those things. The other, relief for mankind. So the other law helps human being to go on. Which of these two laws will prevail? God only knows. God only knows which of these two laws. One is the law of destruction, one is the law of construction and peace. Only God knows which law will be prevailing. But of this, we may be sure that science, in obeying the law of humanity, will always labor to enlarge the frontiers of life. So, Pastor was always a man who seeked peace. So, but of this, we may be sure that science, in obeying the law of humanity, will always labor to enlarge the frontiers of life. So, according to Pastor, the science should help human beings to enhance their life and their mission, and all the findings should contribute to the mankind. So that was the vision of Louis Pasteur. We should work for, the science should work for peace and harmony in the society. Someone who knew Pasteur well in his old age described him thus. So somebody who knew Pasteur at his old age and who knew Pasteur very much remarked. He said something. What he said? Weary, with deep lines on his face, the skin and beard both white, his hair still thick and nearly always covered with black cap, the broad forehead wrinkled, marked with the lines of genius, the mouth slightly drawn by paralysis, but full of kindness, and above all, the living thought which still flashes from the eyes beneath the deep shadow of the eyebrows. So this was the appearance of Louis Pasteur. He was very weak and with the deep lines on his face. You know, when people become old, their face will be there will be wrinkles on his face, deep lines, and the skins and beard both white. So his skin as well as his beard both were white. His hair still thick hair he had. Though all the hair was white, it was very thick. So he had a black cap and he has a broad forehead, wrinkled, and there were wrinkles on his forehead, marked with lines of genius. So those lines showed that how genius he was. His mouth slightly drawn by paralysis, or his mouth was slightly, when people have paralysis, they will open their mouth and it will be like that. So he had a paralysis, and but though he had a paralysis, his eyes were full of kindness. Above all, living thought which still flashes from the eyes beneath the deep shadow of the eyebrows. So he was still hopeful, and so a man of vision and a man of commission, isn't it? Now we move on to paragraph 24. On Pasteur's 17th birthday, his jubilee was celebrated almost like a national festival. So his 17th birthday was celebrated nationwide, like a national festival, because the France and Paris, they all were the people of France were so much proud about this genius. Like Lord Lister, he was honored in his old age by the scientists of all nations. So scientists from all nations honored him. At the crowded meeting in the great hall of the University of Paris, the old man was too overcome to speak. So he was unable to speak at that 17th birthday. And his speech was read to the distinguished audience by his son. So it was his son who read out the beautiful sermon that was prepared by his son, the beautiful speech. It was read out by his son, and it was prepared by Louis Pasteur. Okay, that beautiful speech. In that speech, he said something which was read by his son. On 25th paragraph, you have that. The future, he said, will belong to those who shall have done the most for suffering humanity. So, we should do something for the suffering humanity. It is our duty. So, the future, he said. So, the world will have future only if we work for the suffering humanity. To the young students, he addressed a special word. So, to the young students, he said something that could be appealing for us too. First, ask yourself, what have I done for my education? Then, as you advance in life, what have I done for my country? So these were the two questions that put forward by Louis Pasteur for the young minds. So what have you done for education? How are you studying? How are you doing your responsibility in the process of learning? And when you advance, when you grow old, you should think what I have contributed to my nation. So these were the two questions. So that someday the supreme happiness may come to you, the consciousness of having contributed in some measure to the progress and welfare of humanity. So if you have contributed genuinely something for the humanity and to your nation, and you will have a kind of satisfaction and contentment in your life. Now we move on to the last paragraph of the lesson, 26th paragraph. Pasteur himself certainly knew that happiness. So Pasteur himself had enjoyed what real happiness is, because he has genuinely contributed to the nation and to humanity as such. He died in 1895 when he was 75 years old. So he died at the age of 75 in the year 1895. So sorry, I mentioned earlier that he lived at the time of First World War. No, it is not correct. Actually, he died before the First World War, and his findings really helped the soldiers during their pursuit. And no name in science is more honored or will longer be remembered. So we are so much indebted to this special scientist. This system of inoculation, pasteurization, and the way he helped many industries, all these things are his contribution to humanity. So he will be ever remembered, and he will be ever honored by the scientist of all nations and the humanity in total. Okay. So now we have already finished this lesson. Please don't forget to write the question answers. Now you don't worry about the grammar part that we will discuss in the class. We will begin with the new lesson, the fifth lesson, what is moral action, in the next class day. Okay, have a nice time.